It's becoming more and more common these days for people to say that they miss old Dead by Daylight, and a lot of people these days say they find the game unfun and stale. And I want to go over why that is, or why I think that is. So first of all, I started playing in 2018, just after the Clowns release and before Spirit. So I've been playing the game for a very long time. I've been playing it for, well, nearly 6 years at this point. Uh, so I've definitely been here a long time, and I want to kind of go over why I think that people miss old Dead by Daylight. First of all, the game was horribly balanced back in the day. It's not because it was better balanced or anything. The game was terribly balanced. Maps were worse for the most part. There was old infinites, old windows were so much worse. Maps used to be a lot bigger. And additionally, survivor perks in general were significantly stronger. Survivors did gens faster. Just so much stuff that was just, had to be nerfed. A lot of items like instas, pink syringes used to just literally instantly heal 2 health states. You know how buckle up is pretty bad at the minute with 4 other people. Back in the day, when you down someone, someone can come over with a syringe and then pick that person from dying to healthy before you're even finished your cooldown. So the game's definitely gotten significantly more balanced, but why do people miss Old Dead by Daylight? Well, I think it's because the interaction between killer and survivor has drastically changed. And the main reason being survivor's skill has increased. So back in the day, the majority of players were very bad at the game. The majority of killers were pretty bad, but survivors were terrible at the game. It's the only reason why Dead by Daylight survived. If survivors nowadays went back to what they had 5 years ago, the game would die immediately. The kill rates would be 10%. But since survivors were so bad, kill rates weren't horrible. But the problem is, survivors keep getting better and better. And what does that mean? Survivors going to play more efficiently. Back in the day, you could play Trapper and you would do just fine. Why is that? Well, it's because survivors wouldn't just slam generators. Back in the day, people would used to hide for a bit, maybe stealth around at the start of the game so they don't get found first, and then they would start working on the generator. They would maybe leave when they hear a terror radius. They would cleanse all 5 totems because NOED was a big thing back in the day that people were afraid of. And people would search chests and go into the basement and loot and stuff like that because items were not just stronger but also less common. So all these things really give the killer a lot of passive slowdown. It also means that the killer found people more because they were going around the map. But nowadays, survivors don't do that. They start the game, they all hop on different generators, the killer finds someone, the killer has to chase them. If the killer commits for like even a minute for that first chase, they're gonna lose minimum they're gonna lose 3 generators, and then they're gonna lose an additional like 1 or 2 on the next chase. So killers just can't do that. Survivors will just do generators and they will go from generator to generator, completing them, unhook when necessary. When they get in chase, they will hold W, they'll run early to waste as much of the killer's time. They'll pre-drop pallets. The killer will have to kick them because the majority of pallets are safe for most killers. Um, and then they will get hit, they will use the speed boost, they'll keep running, and eventually they'll go down. But they've already wasted enough of your time. As long as they keep you busy for 40, 50 seconds, that's usually enough to pop a generator or two. And that's the problem with Dead by Daylight these days, is the killer-survivor interaction is basically non-existent. This basically encourages killers to just hit and run and hold generators. It's why 3-gen Skull Merchant is such a problem, because, well, if she doesn't 3-gen, she's just gonna lose. It's why hit and run, Wraith and all is such a viable strategy, because if the Wraith commits to a chase for more than 30 seconds, he's just gonna lose all his generators, because he can't actually down anyone. It's too difficult to down people as Wraith to actually fully commit to chases. And it makes for really unfun gameplay because, let's be honest, when you're playing Survivor and you're playing against a killer that isn't, one of the top tier killers, what does the killer always do? Well, you run early, you make it to a loop, the killer might get hit on you eventually, and the killer will just leave you. The killer never commits to a chase anymore, because it's basically a death sentence to commit to a chase as a killer against a decent survivor in a good spot, because you will lose the game if you take a long chase. Whereas back in the day, that wasn't the case. Back in the day, you could chase a survivor for a minute, and you would be fine. You would probably lose 1 generator somehow. Now, that's not to say the game used to be more balanced. Like I said, the game was terribly balanced, but it's just the way that people played. Also, I apologize for the constantly looping background gameplay. I haven't had many clips in the past few months, so you're just gonna have to deal with the same clips over and over. But that's not the point, you know. I hope you're more just watching to listen to what I have to say. But I think that's why Dead by Daylight for a lot of people seems less fun. For killers, it seems less fun because killers want to chase people. Right? It's the fun part about the game is chasing and being chased. But killers can't chase people because if you chase as killer, you're gonna lose gens. The only killers you can chase as are the high tier killers like Blight, Artist, Spirit, you know, Oni when you're in your power, Executioner, stuff like that. Like, I would love to see a Dredge player try to commit to a chase, you know, at the start of the game against a good player. He's going to get shit on because it's going to take him so long to down him and he's going to lose 3 generators. He's just going to lose. And this is also bad for the survivors because as a survivor, you're basically playing against Legion constantly because killers keep walking up to you, hitting you as fast as they can, and just leaving. And you don't actually get to chase. And then it ends up just boiling down to a 3 gen, or, you know, the killer just loses the game with like 3 hook stages maybe, or something like that. And it's becoming very, very boring. Now, what can we do to fix this? I don't know. The game's just in such a weird spot right now where killers can't commit to a chase because they will probably lose the game if they do it, just because survivors are playing efficiently. Because the majority of survivors these days do know how to play efficiently. Like I said, with every minute survivors get better at the game, it becomes more balanced. Despite survivors getting significantly nerfed over the years, it doesn't matter because the better they get, the more efficient they get, the more they learn to just not really fear the killer, to just slam generators, split up, pre-drop pallets, and let the maps do the work. The killer will just not be able to compete. And now, when I say killer, I do mean low tier killers, or maybe mid tier killers. Even some higher tier killers that people would consider strong should just basically struggle a lot against teams. And this does need to change because it is, I think, which is what making New Dead by Daylight steal for a lot of people, is that killers just don't chase. They can't chase. And it's unfun for everyone. It's unfun for survivors because they don't get to chase. It's unfun for killers because they don't get to chase. So, I don't know. What can we do about this? Maybe add some sort of secondary objective to buy killers more time, and then in return nerf the higher tier killers, fixing maps so they're not so big, so survivors just can't waste so much time by running forward, making it so pallets just aren't as safe. There's just way too many safe loops. The lower tier killers just can't play around them. They're forced to just, you know, obviously play like an M1 killer, as people would say. I don't know, just many things need to change, but I think the way the game is right now is Killer's playstyle is forced to be incredibly boring, which is just prioritizing holding gens.